So Constantine is finally coming out over on the JP version of the game, and he's a little bit of an odd servant. Not exactly what I was expecting, but he's not exactly bad either. He's just really interesting all around. Kind of cool what they're doing with him, but again, still just a little weird. You guys will see as we get into this video. But basically, he's kind of like Reigns, where he is a support type rider servant, which leads to some issues, as some people have discovered with Reigns, that, you know, the rider can kind of suck up all the stars. But he also kind of functions as someone similar to like Super Orion or like Bazette, where he can do a lot of damage with his face cards and is kind of like a Stolly type servant, something along those lines. I don't know, this guy is just a little bit odd. Let's just go ahead and start getting into the servant so you guys can see what I mean. So going ahead and starting off with his hits are actually pretty decent. With a decently strong quick card with 4 hits on it with 8.9% star gen, that's also being passively buffed by his riding skill, meaning that quick card is going to be 9% better than what it actually looks like, meaning, you know, you can drop a fair bit of stars with that quick card in a Brave Chain. Nothing too insane though, although my man also does have some different skills to also up it with star gen. The more important thing here is that he's got 2 really strong quick cards to take advantage of all that star genning you might be able to do with some of his skills, and with some Brave Chains that may or may not include that quick card, because they're rocking 4 hits apiece with 0.52% NP gain, meaning if you can get crits on them, they are going to pop off because of the high natural hits on those arts cards. Although if you're not getting crits, the might be a little bit lackluster. 5-hit extra attack is something we always like to see, and then double buster cards, which will allow him to do some pretty decent face card damage. Again, very, very interesting servant. And things only get odder when we start just going into the skills. So let's just start diving into the skills, where skill 1 gives him a 50% NP gain buff, a taunt for 1 turn, and then it drops 20 stars on a 6-turn cooldown. So I kind of see the synergy here, right? We buff up his NP gain. Very good for his arts cards, makes them absolutely dummy crazy, at least for the turn. Applying the taunt to himself while he also has the buff to his NP gain should allow him to refund a decent bit of his NP as well, because don't forget, when you actually take damage, you do refund your NP gauge, so I kind of see the synergy there. And then the 20 stars is really nice because, like I was saying, he's got a decent quick card, but because he only has 1 of them, he's not going to be dropping too many stars with just his Brave Chains alone, unless you actually start buffing his like crit star generation rate or something. So the 20 stars immediately is very, very nice, but doesn't exactly make the servant quite yet. You know, if he was like a quick servant or an art servant, this would be even crazier to have that 50% NP gain buff for 1 turn. It would allow him to loop really insanely for the turn, but not only does my man have a buster NP, he has a non-damaging buster NP. But again, still very, very good for at least refunding his NP with his arts cards. Very, very good opening to him. But again, it's just odd. You know what I'm saying? He's just a very odd servant. Not bad, very odd. And let's just start moving into his second skill so you guys can see more of what I'm talking about here. Because we move over to the second skill, this is actually really good with the small oddity that he wants to be paired with Roman allies. Thankfully, he is a Roman servant, so he is going to get all of the buffs here. But this in practice is basically just a really, really strong charisma, because he's getting 20% attack for the entire party for 3 turns. Then he's giving everybody 20% buster for 3 turns, so keep in mind that double buffs everybody. It is absolutely insane because different buff types in FGO actually multiply into each other. They do not add into each other. So that is a 20% attack buff that is multiplying into a 20% buster buff for everyone. So it's an insane damage mod. And then if you happen to be Roman, you get that 30% crit damage buff for 3 turns as well on a 6-turn cooldown. Now, do keep in mind, we have people like Romulus that can just turn people Roman. So even if you don't have like a Roman person in the party, quote unquote, you can just forcibly make them a Roman. And when I saw this skill, I was like, ooh, I wonder what the synergy is going to be with certain parties, because Constantine functions as kind of like a Himiko-esque servant, I think is a better way to describe him. Because he's a buster support type servant, kind of, that also functions as like a face card DPS guy as well, kind of, you know what I'm saying? And so a team comp of like Constantine, Romulus, and then ironically Himiko might actually be really good, because Himiko also provides these really strong buffs for Buster setups, and she herself also does really good damage with her face cards. So with stuff like this, I think it makes like that type of team really strong, and it'll be a little more interesting than just running double Koyenskaya. And I'm just really curious to see what kind of team builds come out because of this guy existing in the game. Although all I can say is that Buster people are actually eating right now. But then we have his third skill, and this is just a gargantuan smorgasbord of different effects, because it doesn't look like too much right now, because he's just giving himself 30% crit damage for 3 turns. He's going to give himself 10 stars every single turn, which is what I was talking about towards the beginning of this video, where he has a few different things in his skills to help him out when it comes to star genning. So not only does he have 10 every single turn, but he also can drop 20 immediately. And then he gives himself a 30% battery to help him get to that NP, which is not only helping himself out, but helping out the party as well. But then he has an on-death trigger buff that is going to give your party members 30% battery. It's going to give them 30% crit damage, and then it's going to slap that 10 stars every single turn back on a different person, and that's all for 3 turns. And I really actually like how this works, because if you think about it, this extends the viability of his skill. It gives his skill almost double utility, because let's say you're on the last turn of his own buffs, and then your Constantine just gets absolutely obliterated, right? Then he passes on essentially all the buffs that he was getting to another person, but he resets the cooldown on it. So essentially, you can use Constantine in a way where he just passes the buffs along. And that's actually really, really strong, because then if you happen to be using him with someone like Romulus, or someone that Romulus has turned into a Roman, combined with his second skill, that is 20% attack, 20% buster up, 60% crit damage because of the 30% from the on-death buff and the 30% from the second skill, then it's also 10 stars every turn that they can provide for themselves, plus a 30% battery. It's just pretty nutty. It's actually really, really insane. And I like the idea of him extending the life of his skills by passing on pretty much the entirety of said skill to someone else whenever he gets obliterated by the enemy. But that's not where it ends, folks, because then we also just have his own NP, which off rip kind of gives you a reason to go for higher NP copies of the guy, because depending on his NP level, he's going to be giving himself 30 to 50% buster up for 3 turns. Now that is a potential buster mana burst, or a 70% buster buff multiplying into his own attack buff. Still, NP1 is absolutely insane, because if you consider that he gets 20% from skill 2 and 30% bare minimum, that is still a buster mana burst that he's going to be giving himself, which is dummy insane. He gives himself 1 hit of invincibility to, you know, just try to neg an NP that's going to be trying to take him out or something. And then he gives the entire party 100% defense for 1 turn, and then gives them 5k damage cut if they're Romans. So absolutely dummy nutty. He just says, I'm going to protect the entire party with 100% defense. And then if they're Romans, they also get damage cut just in case the enemy has like Pierce defense or something. It's absolutely stupid dummy good. Like, this guy's NP is really basic, but it is really, really, really strong. Because it's not like, say, Scotty, where she only gives you like 1 hit of evasion to the entire party. He gives them 100% defense for the turn. That's pretty much like the AoE nope skill, right? Except because you have 100% defense, you're not going to take any damage. Absolutely insane Giga Chad character that we have going on here. I'm just really curious to see how competitive he's going to be, because he just seems like he's a really solid A tier servant to me upon first viewing him. Because he's kind of just doing a lot of really good generic good stuff that the party would want. He seems like he can be a very, very good just buster crit servant, where he just does big face card damage, and will pair very well with people like Koyenskaya, Merlin, people along those lines that can just give him massive amounts of damage. But I'm also curious to see how good he's going to be as a support type servant, and what team compositions people are going to use him in. And I'm really curious. Down in the comments down below, let me know what you guys think about Constantine, because he seems solid, but he doesn't seem broken. But maybe someone's going to be like, bro, but are you thinking about the team comp where we use double Constantine and Eric Bloodaxe? That's going to go crazy. Like, someone will probably hit me with that in the comments down below, as it is admittedly very, very early as I'm recording this video. But yeah, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave a comment down below on what you guys think of Constantine. And with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.